my question for the week is, well, it's telling you to think back to your first experience with the internet. What did you do, and what were your first impressions of it? My answer to that is, I guess it was 1996. My parents we had Prodigy, which I guess was a operating system, or
it was an online community thing.
Yeah.
And it was everything was text, so it was like anything you looked up. So the first thing I looked up was the Dead Milkmen, right?
Oh.
And I find I had several interesting experiences on that. One of them involving meeting Dean's wife, Melissa, many years ago. That was in 1996. And another where I was like sending tapes to this kid, and he was sending tapes to me. It was like, because I guess Joe had sent tapes to me, and I was sending tapes to this kid, and I guess he lived in St. Louis. But what's funny is when we played in St. Louis, he was that guy that ran the radio station there. I don't know if you guys remember me having a conversation with him, but I was like, your last name sounds familiar. I was like, did you have Prodigy mail in 1990s? And he was like, yeah.
Yeah.
And I was like, we sent tapes to each other. It was so crazy. It was so random. He's like, wait, you're playing in the band now? I'm like, that's a long story. So that was the first thing. And to be perfectly honest with you, I guess what was I, 17 maybe 16? I was like, I don't think this is gonna last. This is really
My father said the same thing. He called computers and the internet a fad. Yeah.
Just words. It takes an hour to get a picture downloaded. You go in and make some food and come back, and it's still coming through. But yeah, so that is my honest. That was my first impression, was that it was not gonna last. So next.
Okay. Yeah, I was going to say Prodigy too. I think we got our first computer in 1995. It was a Gateway computer, and we sprung for the high-end model because I had grand plans that I was going to make like animations and videos and stuff, which really wasn't possible back then with any sort of scale or anything. I think the top of the line model had 8 megabytes of RAM, and my hard drive was 120 megabytes. I was like blazing back then. And yes, we too had we had a Prodigy account. We back then you had to like sign up with an ISP, and ours was called VoiceNet, I remember, and you had to use those noisy modems to log on. And we had a Prodigy account. Yeah, Dan, I was going to mention that. Yeah, I think you and Melissa were on like the music. There was a big music bulletin board scene on Prodigy. And around that time, I started taking classes for this newfangled internet thing, like building websites. I think Prodigy had a thing where you could like, or at least VoiceNet had a thing where you could have your own web page. And so I made my first homepage. I don't know if I could dig up my first design or not. I know I have some screenshots of some early versions of my own website back in the mid 90s, probably around 96 or 97. I got my first job at a interactive agency, which was like an advertising agency that started to do web stuff in 1997. So yeah, I've been online and doing stuff online for a long time. So yeah, that's my recollection of being on the internet back then.
So I was on the proto internet. I was on the old bulletin boards, and how I got there. So this would have been 1991, maybe very early 1992. I had gotten a piece of garbage laptop at somebody's like yard sale with a modem. Didn't really know what to do with them, but I was really interested in little electronic gadgets. And somebody told me that if you went out to one of these bulletin boards, that what you could do is they could lead you to how to get a hold of audio files of the sound of quarters going into a metal container. I don't know why I would want that. I have get that in a Hallmark card. I have no idea what I had planned. But actually, I used Earthlink when it first started. It was just a bulletin board. You had to use DOS commands to get on there. So I still have my blue DOS book somewhere. What happened was you would go on, and it was the classic green screen, white text, not very fancy, but you had to choose. So I get the service and all that, and you had to choose a username. So I just went and used Wyvern as a username and went through. And apparently, like now, if you chose Wyvern, you'd be like Wyvern 2,600,938. I was just Wyvern. And so I go through, and the first thing I'm greeted with when it comes on, like Wyvern is, and all these people were offering me money for my handle. They wanted to buy it from me. And I thought, again, and partially like Dan, I thought, well, this is never going to succeed with people thinking this way. So I think and I held on until we moved years ago, I think here into South Philly, or maybe into one of the other, when I moved from one spot to another in Center City, I had Earthlink for like 20 years. And I think I started working in IT on like a help desk in like 1995 or 96. So, or maybe it was even earlier than that. No, it was about a year after I was married. It's about 95. But I was absolutely like, I thought this is going to go, but it was still fascinating. I still go on there because you could like, enter some stuff and chat with people. I learned how to make all those ASCII drawings. I used to be able to make Kilroy looking over the thing. I used to really enjoy that. And then of course, it was probably like, I always say like, that was the first and only pleasant experience I ever had on the internet. The people offering to buy my handle. But then a few years later, the internet ruined everything. If people don't understand, before the internet, somebody would say Japan, and you would think about like pagodas and cherry blossoms. And now it's all tentacle porn and vending machines that sell schoolgirls' underwear, or the term furry. Furry actually meant something that was covered in fur. It wasn't some guy dressed up like a wolf running around yipping. So yeah, that was my my very first experience. I was on a bulletin board in like I'm gonna say at the latest, like late January of 92.
Wow.
And I was Wyvern.
I came to computers much later than anyone else here. Mr. John Razzler of Razzler Records fame hooked me up with a very inexpensive desktop PC in 1998. That was my first computer. And I got on the internet to get email so I could have email. My first actual experience was Juno email, which wasn't even the internet, really. It was just, you dial it up and got email. But then from there, I got an AOL disk.
Yeah, they used to give them away with everything you bought.
Yeah, if you opened your window, it came
I guess
flying
everyone
in.
got it.
You used them as coasters for a while.
Sorry about that. That was me.
JFK is getting hit with AOL disk. You look back and to the left.
So yeah, I had a Windows 95 computer in 98. Early 98, April, I remember the month even. I was enamored with the internet, actually. I liked it a lot. And very quickly I got an ISP out, not AOL, but one of the very first things I did was find the Schumin website that Mickey did, and it was really cool. He had, it was like a blog, I guess, early blog kind of thing, but he had a lot of unreleased Schumin stuff, like bootlegs. So it was good to keep checking back. And I think you had to have something called a plugin called the Real Player. I think that's the thing. Because there wasn't even MP.
Remember, it had the different skins, and you could like make it look all purplish.
That was Winamp. That was Winamp.
Winamp.
Okay, yeah.
Winamp and MP3s came out maybe about a year later when they got popularized. Yeah, I remember getting whatever real player or whatever, so I could hear these cool unreleased Ween songs. I was so enamored with it that I really quickly learned about as much as I could about computers and how to make websites. Well, even before that, I went to GeoCities and joined that and made a town manager's webpage because that was the band I was in at the time. I also made a webpage on the Razzler Records site for Butterfly Joe. That was another band I was in. And that's why John wanted me to have a computer so I could communicate with him
Did it have
electronically.
a web counter?
Yeah, it had a web counter on it to show you how many people visited. That was the internet. And you had to dial up, like Dean said, and I had 3 roommates, so I couldn't stay on very long at a time because I'd be tying up the phone. But yeah, I thought it was the future. I didn't think it was going to fade away. And I wanted to learn everything I could about it. I learned on the internet how to I learned on the internet about computers and how to make web pages and do coding. Like,
You were the first person to goat say me. I remember that. You were like, hey, here's this awesome link. And I clicked, I got goat sayed. Oh, goat say.
But yeah, it ended up changing my life in a way I didn't really expect because it
You did a lot of stuff.
got a job doing that stuff.
Website too.
What's that?
I did a low budgets website too, which
Yeah, and you like changing
was
the
more
message
interactive.
board around, and then you had a thing where you could erase your computer if you clicked on it, and
all these things were mostly Chris's idea. I was just the implementer of them.
I did the Secret Cinema website. That was one of the first ones I did.
Oh, cool. Yeah,
I'm trying to remember when the first Milkmen site went up, which I think was in
I visited those too, I should say.
1998 maybe?
The message board.
I visited Glenn Kay's message board a lot.
But I think the first Milkmen site went up around 98. I'm not sure.
Well, that's when I got on the internet.
Yeah.
Yeah, it used to be awesome. Like it was like families gathering around the radio back in radio days. You get around, you go look at like the sci-fi channel site, and oh, this is awesome. Or when they had the bits of The Exorcist that hadn't been released. I was at work and Vienna was watching those on the computer, and I came home. She'd been afraid to go to the bathroom, so she's like waiting for me to get home from work. It was so awesome because you get these cool sounds. It was a lot more fun back in the day. So people look up the Schumin Web if you get a chance.
Oh boy, I remember that.
Remember the Schumin Web? The
Yes.
Schumin Web is the greatest thing of all time. Loved for all the wrong reasons. It's still out there. Ben Schumin is still out there. People, if you want to go down a rabbit hole, go down the rabbit hole of Ben Schumin. Just trust us on this. But Schumin is absolutely amazing. Yeah, he is.
The Heaven's Gate website, which was never updated from when they, went up to space.
So Dan, so Melissa, and I guess maybe I met you through Prodigy. When did we meet you in person then?
Around that time, probably a few months after, because Joe was playing.
Was it a Butterfly Joe show?
No, I think it may have been Touch Me Zoo.
It was like at a YMCA.
Yeah, it was at a YMCA. I found a thing that you and Melissa and Woods and I drew that night. And
we did like a shared comic thing or whatever.
And I found a bunch of floppy disks with emails from Prodigy, so there's probably some with Melissa's messages. Yeah, it's funny. I don't know. I guess my recommendation is don't make assumptions about technological advancement before because I really was like, oh, this is boring. And to be perfectly honest with you, I don't think I really did anything on the internet after like graduating from high school until, I don't know, maybe like 2002 or something. I just I didn't have any use for it. I got an email address and then all hell breaks loose after that. And now nobody uses. Well, I don't even look at my email.
Don't feel bad, Dan. One day back in the 80s, we were in the studio and I was reading a copy of Musician and it was talking about MIDI. And it said one day a studio will be a keyboard and a computer. I'm trying to tell everybody, and everybody's like, nah, it'll never happen. That was kind of how I got interested.
Always have guitars.
Yeah, always have guitars. I mean,
Yeah.
My recommendation is to carry a pocket knife.
Ooh, I was just saying.
I actually have several. This is the one I currently carry.
Ooh.
It's quite large, but the
Wow.
thing about it, it has tools. Most notably, it has a thing that I can open and break down boxes for recycling, and it has a pair of scissors, but it also has a Phillips screwdriver, which is unusual for a pocket knife. But I also have several. So I have this one too, which is more like a multi-tool. It's a little big and heavy, but it has pliers.
Ooh, yeah.
And like Rodney, I have a black Swiss Army knife. And this tiny little one I carried around for a long time, but you almost can take it on an airplane, but we don't ride on airplanes anymore anyway. So that's it. Carry a pocket knife. It comes in handy in more ways than you imagine. I use mine every day. So
I'm going to cut you, man. I'm going to cut you. I'm going to cut you, man.
You never know when you're gonna. And I was gonna say, to add to that, keep it in your sock, because you never know when you're gonna be like tied up somewhere by somebody.
Hey, your personal life is your own.
Get out if they're reaching into your sock and getting the knife. The demon.
You keep one in your pocket and they take that one, but they don't know that you have one in your sock.
Sock knife. That's how they get you.
That's right. All right.
So my recommendation is Accidental Death During the Elizabethan Era. You folks are going to thank me for turning you on to this. The other night, Vienna and I were laying in bed watching Killer Queen. Oh, no, Elizabeth I, Killer Queen, ? And it was about, of course, the death of Amy Robsart, who was Robert Lord Dudley's wife, the woman that they found at the bottom of the stairs dead. Milkmen all know about this. We used to argue about this in the van for hours on end. So please, don't fill up the comments section with your theories. We came to the conclusion that it was William Cecil, the actual advisor to Elizabeth I, who probably had Amy killed. But so yeah, that was just something, and that was hours and hours. But okay, forget about that. That's not important. What's important is in the middle of this sort of mediocre little documentary thing, this one guy starts talking about his friend. He goes, and I had no way to know if Amy Robsart had suffered head injuries or anything. But fortunately, a friend of mine came across her original autopsy report. So then they cut to this guy who is the coolest mofo on the planet. He goes, yes, I was writing a paper about accidental death during, the decline of archery during the Elizabethan era. And there were a lot of accidental deaths due to archery. So I began looking into accidental death during the Elizabethan era. And he starts rattling off this coolest shit list of all these accidental deaths. People being killed by trained bears, people falling out of towers by ringing bells. And if you go into it, I started looking into it to see how cool it would be. One guy actually managed to shoot himself in the head with a bow and arrow. He had taken it back so far. So yeah, we'll include links to accidental death in the Elizabethan era, and probably to the thing Elizabeth I, Killer Queen. Definitely read the comments on that because they're hilarious. Like, how dare they impugn Queen Bess? You folks owe me for this. This is going to be good. Oh, also, I want to recommend, since it's in tonight's theme, a song by a band called Slime City, and the song is called Dial Up Internet's the Purest Internet, and it's very catchy.
That's good.
My recommendation is a throwback to when I became enamored with computers. This is a book from 1999 called A History of Modern Computing by Paul E. Ceruzzi. Is that how you say his name? I don't know. But I read it twice. I liked it so much. But it takes the history. It starts around 1945 and goes to what then was the present day with the startings of the internet, or maybe 95. And it's pretty fascinating. There's a lot of personal stories in it, not just about the computers themselves. But I just found out this guy, there's going to be like a new book coming out in September by him and someone else called A New History of Modern Computing. I think that's what it's called, which will bring it up to date to the era of the smartphone and self-driving cars and stuff like that. So I'm looking forward to that.
Hey, do you guys remember when CNET used to have a TV show and everybody used to watch it?
I remember that.
It's like, CNET's on, CNET's on.
I used to, like Joe said, I used to look at the internet. I used to look at the wired.com site. They used to have a whole section of the site devoted to how to build web pages and stuff. I learned a lot of stuff from that.
I loved Portal of Evil so much, and I love Dysfunctional Family Circus. If I could bring back one thing from the internet, I would bring back Dysfunctional Family Circus. That used to make my day.
If I'm not mistaken, if you had an AOL account, you could create a website, right?
Yeah. Well,
like
It
late
was really,
90s,
yeah.
where you could do like basic colors and text and stuff, and I think embed pictures even.
yeah.
Yeah, I think I've had my website since, I'm going to say, like 95 or 96, maybe. I've had RodneyAnonymous.com. I've owned that domain forever. Because I was afraid somebody'd snatch that up, much like Wyvern. People just want it. I'll pay you to do that.
All right. Well, thanks for answering the big question.